Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's show. And welcome as well to the final edition of our at-home Live with Marketers of 2020. And what a year it's been. Thanks for dialing in wherever you are, whether that's from your home office, the real office, or your bed. We won't judge. My name is Grace McDonald. I'm a content marketer at LinkedIn and the host of our episode today. We are all looking to 2021 anticipating a return to growth. But the question on the mind of sales and marketing leaders is, what will growth look like? After a year that has shifted demand, altered buyer behavior, and questioned our longest running assumptions about how businesses operate, how do we set ourselves up for success? And is there an opportunity to build back better than we were before? I'm delighted to be joined by my three guests who are able to bring an expert perspective to these questions and lots more. Before we get started, I just want to highlight a couple of housekeeping details. A recording of the show will be available on the LinkedIn Marketing Solutions page after. We're doing live Q&A at the end of the show via LinkedIn Live. So add your questions in the comments or with the hashtag #LiveUpMarketers, and we'll try and answer as many as we possibly can. And you can also follow along the conversation on LinkedIn with the hashtag #LiveUpMarketers. So please get involved. Now, let me introduce you to my stellar panel. Josh Graff is LinkedIn's UK Country Manager and Vice President of EMEA and LATAM. As the leader of an organisation that pivoted quickly to remote working, Josh has thought long and hard about how to support sales and marketing in finding paths to growth in these circumstances. As someone who's passionate about diversity, inclusion, and belonging, he's acutely aware of the role that culture has to play in how we design the way we operate in the future. I'm also really pleased to welcome Samairah, Maqsood, and Andrew Harkness, Sales Director and Chief Operating Officer at MVF. For those of you who aren't familiar with MVF, this is a business that's become one of the fastest growing in the UK through its innovative approach to building specialist audiences for its clients' products and services, using these audiences to deliver new customers to their clients via their platform. This gives Sam and Andrew great insight into how demand is changing across different sectors. And like LinkedIn, MVF has built its success across culture. It's currently the best place to work in the UK, according to the Sunday Times rankings. So at LinkedIn, we often kick off our meetings with a little icebreaker. Sam, I'm going to ask you to tell our viewers a little bit more about you, your role, and share one thing that's not on your LinkedIn profile.
Of course. Thank you, Grace, for the introduction. My name is Sam Maqsood, and I'm the Sales Director at MVF. I joined MVF almost a decade ago, so I've really seen our business grow from 30 people with an office under a railway arch with one Wi-Fi router and no windows that shook every time a train passed, to over 500 people and an international sales team across the UK and the US. I've really seen us pick up some amazing accolades along the way, the most recent being what you mentioned, Grace, which was last year we were listed as the best company to work for in the UK by the Sunday Times. So it's been a truly incredible journey. Something that's not on my LinkedIn profile, I guess, is that I'm an avid cook. So the lockdown was quite difficult for me because I love feeding my friends. So I'm looking forward to testing some new recipes on them.
Great, thank you. Andrew, I'll pass it to you.
Hi, thanks for having me, Grace. Real pleasure to be here. So my name's Andrew Harkness. I'm MVF's COO. I joined the business in 2015 and I'm responsible for our marketing functions. And I also look after some of our broader cross-functional change activities as well. Prior to joining MVF, I spent 12 years in consulting with Accenture. And then I spent 6 years building and growing a UK independent search and display agency called NMPI. And that's where I learned how to build high performance digital marketing teams. And that's what I've done since I joined MVF 5 years ago in 2015. And on the personal side of things, I've got 3 boys. I've got twin girls on the way. I love riding my bike, and I'm also an aspiring bedroom DJ.
Wow, Andrew, a full house for you. Work from home must have been difficult there for a while. Josh, I'll pass it to you finally.
Thanks, Grace, and good to be with you today. My name is Josh. I'm the country manager for LinkedIn in the UK. I also lead our marketing solutions, which is our advertising business across EMEA and Latin America. I've been at LinkedIn for coming up to a decade in the next couple of months. Similar to this journey that Sam's seen in their organization, I distinctly remember coming in and celebrating our 85 million member milestone. Today, we're north of 722 million members around the globe. In terms of something that's not on my LinkedIn profile, going back a few years, so I'm a terrible, terrible singer. I really can't string a note together, but going back a few years, I found myself in a rainstorm on the #1 court at Wimbledon, and despite not being able to sing, ended up standing up with a friend and teaching the whole of #1 court to sing a song called Father Abrahams that requires rather random arm and head movements.
Wow. I can imagine our audience are going to ask you to sing at some stage near the end, but we'll try and protect you from that, Josh. Great. Well, a reminder to our audience, you can get involved in the conversation with the hashtag #LiveWithMarketers, but we're going to jump into the questions. So first up, culture makes businesses more competitive in terms of the talent and people they attract and their ability to retain them. LinkedIn recently surveyed 1,200 marketers on how they've adapted their approach over the recent times. And over half of B2B marketers told us they're putting more emphasis on their company's vision and values. MVF won the very coveted award of the #1 place to work in the Sunday Times, as we've already mentioned. And Andrew, how has this culture helped your team to navigate what has been a crazy year?
So Grace, I'll definitely answer a question, but for some of the audience, they may not know who we are. So I thought I might just describe a little bit about who MVF are. So we're a market-leading customer generation platform, and that means that we deliver real-time automated flows of prospective customers, both SMEs and also consumers, with a high intent to purchase. And we do that at massive scale. We do over 4 million sales leads a year in over 100 categories and in over 300 verticals worldwide. The difference, I think, in our model is that we own the end-to-end marketing funnel from content creation right the way through to campaign management. And then we get feedback from our clients into how well our leads are performing for our clients, and that's all powered by proprietary technology, data, and process. We run over 40 marketing channels, and we supplement that with O&O, and it works. We've got a formidable track record of growth. We've grown over 30% year on year for the last 5 or 6 years, and all that's was founded in North London. We've got an office in Kentish Town in North London, and we've also got a sales office in Austin in Texas as well. So to your question, culture has been unbelievably important for us in terms of how we've been able to manage through the pandemic. There's absolutely no question that without having the culture that we have, it would have been very different for us. I guess, like many businesses, we flipped to work from home pretty much overnight, including moving a contact center to 100% work from home in just 48 hours. And it's been really tough. There's no question about that. But I'm just so proud of the team and the way that they responded. They showed that resilience, agility, and positivity. But also they looked out for each other, and I was just so proud of the team. But I'm not surprised, because I guess the leadership team and we view culture as a source of competitive advantage, and it's something that we've worked very hard to curate and to maintain over the years. I guess the founders set the tone when they set up the business in 2009. It's very entrepreneurial, very ambitious, tremendously commercial, yet also really encouraging and positive environment. And back in 2015, what we tried to do was really try to distill the essence of what made MVF the special place that it is to work, and we tried to write that down and encapsulate that in our values. And you can't make that up. There has to be a distillation of the DNA of the business, and we came up with 6 values, and it's those values that we use to govern everything we do, from hiring through to compensation and promotion decisions, through to decisions that we make in our business day to day. So when COVID hit, frankly, the team just got on with it. They adapted. They showed tremendous resilience and that positivity, and that really carried through into our trading performance. And we've built tremendous momentum through the summer and into Q3.
I think it's really interesting with MVF that when we were talking about bringing you guys onto the show, your culture really aligns with LinkedIn's as well. It's something that I've been at LinkedIn for nearly 5 years, 5 years at Christmas, and it comes true in everything that we do as well. And it's really our kind of raison d'etre. So I think it's really, it's great to hear that from your company as well and hear how much you're investing in it. And I think as well, the shift, the culture that we all have in these companies it has made the response to the pandemic a little bit easier. Easy is probably not a good word to use around this year, but it was rapid and it was really impressive, especially at LinkedIn, what we've been able to do. So we're seeing this as a long-term shift in how we think about working. Josh, are there opportunities in this for culture and employer brands going into 2021?
Without a doubt, there are opportunities. I think to the point that was just made, like, if you think about there are two core foundations that help companies thrive. And I specifically say thrive versus just survive, because I think companies can survive without them, but they can't necessarily thrive. One is clarity of mission and vision, the true north, where are you heading, what's the direction of travel? And the second is your culture and values. And your culture is who you are and what you aspire to be, and your values are the principles that guide you. And I don't know how many of you took up baking during the lockdown restrictions over the last 9 months. I certainly did, and I discovered the benefits of egg as a bonding agent. And I very much think of culture and values as the bonding agent within an organization. It's what holds the team together and allows them to operate as one unit towards ultimately accomplishing your mission and your vision. And in terms of the opportunities that represents, as Andrew said, it helps you be more resilient. It's a competitive advantage in many respects. But I do think that companies spend an awful lot of time thinking about their corporate brand and how their brand shows up to their customers or their prospects or the media or policymakers, but often forget to think about their employer brand. You know, why are you a great place for somebody to come and work? And I think it often gets lost because it sits somewhere between HR and marketing. And if the HR and marketing organizations are not aligned, then no one's thinking about it. But ultimately, if you believe that your true the element of your business that makes you truly competitive is your people, your talent, you really have to think about your employer brand. And I think increasingly over the last 6 months, people have recognized they need to offer a lot more flexibility to their employees. It's an opportunity for them to diversify their workforce, especially when people don't necessarily need to commute. People can work remotely or from home more frequently. So I think it's thrown up a whole host of opportunities around the employee value proposition that some companies had considered in the past, but perhaps have become more prominent over the last few months.
I think it's so true. And back in April, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, said, "We've seen 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months." And I know we've had a couple of conversations before this call, and we've seen that across all of our clients and in our own roles as well. And it's impressive, it's exciting. But Sam, what has that meant for your clients?
So obviously in the first few weeks of lockdown, everything was very new. So people were naturally hesitant until they were able to see how their businesses could adapt to new circumstances and they could make sure all of their operations, for example, were in line with new COVID protocols. But since that initial period, we've seen significant growth across our client base. Our clients' response to the second lockdown, however, has been really different from the first. And I think that really shows how both marketing and sales have adapted. We've seen clients adapt their sales funnel and products in response to the pandemic, really optimizing their sales funnel to align with more of a virtual approach and investing and expanding their tech stack to make this all possible. This started with almost being forced to adopt this tech and digital way of working just to stay afloat, to the growing belief that perhaps this virtual process or digital ways of working is the way to go. So in some businesses, this pandemic-induced patterns are likely to become permanent. And I think because the shift to virtual sales can help sales organizations lower, for example, their cost per visit, extend their reach, and significantly improve sales effectiveness. But I think more generally, the lockdown has favored companies with a real client-focused core. And I think that proves two things. The first is investing in relationships is particularly a smart thing to do. You experience a stronger sense of this closeness during times of uncertainty with your clients, and we've really benefited from that. So investing in entering into more of, I would guess, a strategic partnership domain, and you end up with more happy, bigger clients. And I think the second is making customers the center of your processes, and that complements a relationship focus. Processes designed around this are resilient in the face of change. And at MVF, for example, we're really geared towards aligning to our client success metrics. So that allows us to be more agile when those success metrics need changing. So if you've nailed those two things internally, I think your relationship with your partners and clients naturally becomes less volatile and therefore more progressive.
I really like the point you made there as well, Sam, about being customer-centric. I think it's a shift we were seeing anyway that's been accelerated through this time. This time as well has allowed both B2B sellers and B2B marketers to really shine. I think that they've been able to do some really innovative things to make sure they are being customer-centric and helping rather than selling. So especially in the marketing space, Josh, what do you see B2B marketers changing in future, or how do you see them pivoting for 2021?
I think B2B marketers are perhaps a little more fortunate in the fact that B2B has been more insulated from the macroeconomic challenges of the last 6 months versus B2C. That's very different to something like the 2007, 2008 recession. Firstly, there's been a shift in, as Sam was just saying, a shift in buying behaviors. McKinsey just came out with some research a couple of weeks ago that showed only 25 to 30% of buyers ever actually want to have a face-to-face meeting with the vendor. And they don't expect that to change after the pandemic. So there has been this fundamental shift in the way that people are buying. We expect that to continue. And in the B2B space, which was very reliant in the past on in-person events, and we're the same at LinkedIn, we spent a disproportionate amount of our budget, on our marketing budget, on in-person events. And we've had to pivot really quickly over the last 6 months to move all of those in-person events to digital, or enable those goals to be delivered through other channels. So one is on the event side. We've seen a huge adoption of things like LinkedIn Live that we're using at the moment, other event programs that we have launched from a platform perspective over the last 6 months. I think marketers, B2B marketers especially, are still trying to figure out exactly how you extract the maximum value from B2B events and how you can generate leads off the back of them. But we have seen people doing that with great success. I think the other piece that has shifted over the last 6 months is the way that B2B marketers are measuring success. We did some research that always fascinates me at the beginning of the year that showed that 96% of B2B marketers measure the efficacy of their programs in periods less than 6 months. But the B2B buying cycle for most of those customers is 6 months plus. So there's this disconnect between how they're measuring success and how their customers are buying from them. And I think what's happened over the last 6 months, especially in the early stages when people moved from demand gen to brand, recognizing that there was a pause on consumer and B2B spending in the very early stages, is they've had to realign A, the KPIs with their sales organizations, but B, reset expectations with the CFO around how marketing organizations are measuring success, and recognizing the benefit in measuring success over an extended period of time and the benefits of investing in top of funnel brand, and coming back to some of those core philosophies, which is if you have a greater share of, if your share of voice is greater than your share of market, your business is going to grow over time. So I think in some ways, like, very quick shifts, especially when it comes to events and the change in the digital buying cycle. In others, they've gone back to some core foundational marketing principles, especially when it comes to top of funnel awareness and how that can help you generate disproportionate market share in the future.
I think as well with the events, we had IBM on a previous show, and how quickly people pivoted to create new platforms and use LinkedIn Live and really become so familiar with building, like we discussed before our call, little studios out of your kitchen, which is where I am right now. It's been inspiring to see all of that move so quickly. And with this year, obviously plans and targets went hugely out the window. And Sam, I know this has been the experience for your clients as well, and you mentioned a minute ago about how they moved to being much more customer-centric. What did you do as a sales team to respond to the new needs of your clients?
Sure, I guess there's no two ways about it. Planning for uncertainty is really difficult, particularly when economic conditions are really unclear, but then also time horizons. So when this started, no one really knew how long it might last. I think what's worked well for our clients and for MVF as well is having a really systematic approach and remaining as agile as possible to a really changing environment. And what I mean by that is considering some key triggers or milestones that reflect the business's trading position and allowing you to identify whether you're traveling in the right direction. So these triggers or goals, you might call them, maybe as simple as daily, weekly or monthly trading reports, sharing when clients that have had to pause go back live, or outcome-based triggers like bringing back people from the furlough scheme and ensuring that you communicate these goals clearly to your employees and keep them updated on progress, enabling them to gauge the position of the business. You could also look at this from a team perspective. So from a sales organization, should we change the key performance indicators we're aiming towards? How many clients that have paused do we need to get back live in order to make an impact? What should our sales pipelines look like in the short term? You can then link those trigger events to bigger aims, such as smart investment. So a lot of businesses had immediate hiring freezes. So an obvious outcome might be to start hiring again. But I think firstly, it's vital to understand your starting position. And then you can, for those, for example, businesses really negatively impacted, understanding depth of the decline, duration of the decline, and the time required to ramp back up. So some businesses might have seen a really high impact. For example, we work in the hearing aid sector, which was quite badly affected in the first lockdown, versus others that may be faced with a slight decline in sales or maybe supply chain issues. And then from understanding that starting position, you can then identify if you need to just weather the crisis with smaller non-structural changes, or if it requires a complete change in cost structure or business model, or adopting new technology due to changing to digitalized processes. But I think it also feeds back into the culture and values conversation from earlier that Andrew talked about, which is particularly important. So at MVF, growth is in our DNA, and as a business, we grow on average 30% year on year. We, like other fast-growing businesses, had really big plans for this financial year. So engaging our workforce has been more crucial than ever. So if anything, we've really over-communicated with them so that they have as much knowledge as possible to help them in putting things into perspective and enable them to still feel success this year, even though it might look a little different. And that's really meant us investing in our work from home culture and values, and allowing MVF to build up its resilience. So rather than investing in maybe precise planning and forecasting of all possible scenarios, then at least you're equipped to deal with these situations when they arise.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong point, and I think like the majority of businesses in the pandemic, MVF had to replan, and frankly, a pandemic, it's just an exceptional event, and we certainly didn't contemplate it when we were putting together our plan for the year. But I guess there are some things that don't change, and that is that the industry that we're in, the digital marketing industry, has got tremendous pace of change, and frankly, successful businesses need to be responsive to that. And as Sam said, we've enjoyed a 30% year-on-year average growth rate for the past 6 or 7 years. And I should say that we've hit plan in all of those years bar one, and when we missed it by a whisker. And I think it's that consistency which is as a consequence of the fact that we're a massively opportunity-rich business, and in those years we hit our plan, we don't always hit it in the way in which we expect. But as a consequence of, I think, the agility and the adaptability and the responsiveness that we have within our organisation, that we're then able to spot opportunities, to quickly then mobilise around those opportunities, and then create momentum. And our CRO has got a saying, our CRO Dan, and he has a saying which is something along the lines of, in 5 years' time, we'll be marketing products that have not yet been invented, for businesses that have not yet been founded, on channels that have not yet been launched. And so I think that organizational agility and flexibility to pivot around opportunity, and when you spot that opportunity to move quickly to take advantage of that with a culture that supports that, is really, really, really important, and will continue to be as we manage through some of these very uncertain times in the coming 12, 24, 36 months.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the challenges that people have faced. There's been such a fast shift towards digital marketing. If you think about, especially within the B2B space, a lot of people used to invest heavily on print or outdoor or airport, and none of that is really available at scale anymore. And so they've had to fundamentally shift the way they market to digital channels, which is ultimately where their buyers are spending the most time. And therefore, a lot of the work over the last 6 months has been around reskilling, around making sure that you have the right skill sets in your organization to be able to adapt and capture the attention of your customers where they're spending time. And for that reason, I think in many ways, the pandemic has put on a pedestal 2 core roles in the organization, the CMO and the CHRO. The CHRO, because there has been such a heightened discussion around talent, employee experience, benefits, remote working, and how you help manage your teams through really challenging circumstances. I think there's been an increase in empathy and compassion there, recognizing that every employee is struggling or managing, depending on who they are, through the pandemic in a different way. And on the CMO side, the CMO is, I think many years ago, was probably seen as a cost center, frankly, and is now seen as a growth engine. And if anything, over the last 6-9 months, that's been heightened. But this notion of reskilling your organization to be able to embrace digital, and as Andrew just mentioned, there's a whole series of channels that are popping up every 6 months where there's no real sort of historic experience in our industry working in that sector. So you have to adapt, and you have to invest in reskilling your existing workforce. It's not just about bringing people in from the outside, and that's certainly one of the trends that we've seen over the last few months, especially from the learning side of our business.
And with that reskilling, Josh, and looking forward into 2021, how do you think marketers can support their business and their sales team in 2021 and in thriving or returning to growth?
Sure, and there are, by the way, a subset of businesses that are thriving at the moment. There are many that paused, that have really struggled. A lot of those are in the B2C sectors, travel, entertainment, leisure. We've seen the hiring rates in all of those industries in the UK and around the world decline and not get back into positive territory year over year. But there are sectors that have been thriving and have seen this as an opportunity to double down and really capture market share that they didn't think was possible 6 months ago. The people that are doing this really well, they're investing in upskilling, they're investing in the employee experience, they're making sure that the sales and marketing teams are fully aligned on what the ultimate measures of success are. They're aligning with the CFO to give them clarity on both the short-term objectives as well as the longer-term brand building objectives. So there are a lot of things that people are doing to drive growth at the moment that I think is going to serve them particularly well when you look out 6, 9, 12 months time. But again, I can't restate it enough. The upskilling piece is critically important at the moment. And I think some people are taking it very seriously, and some people will find themselves stuck in 12 months' time because they continue to hire talent from the same places, the same types of companies. Everybody in their organization looks and feels the same. They haven't embraced diversity, not just when it comes to gender or race or ethnicity or sexuality, but when it comes to things like industry and background. We've made a concerted effort at LinkedIn to try and hire people from very different sectors over the last couple of years, and that has served us well. The final piece I would say is this obsessive focus on customer value. About 18 months ago to 2 years ago, we shifted the way that we measure success within our organization. And yes, of course, we still look at revenue, we look at productivity, profitability, but customer value has now become one of our core metrics of success. And customer value changes depending on the business in which you're operating, whether it's a talent business, a sales business, an advertising business. But if you can measure your business success and tie it to the value that you're delivering for your customer, you are onto a good thing. It is very difficult to go wrong when you know that your customer value metric is growing at a faster rate than your own sort of revenue or profitability. And so figure out what is at the core of what sort of helps your customers be more successful today than they were tomorrow. And if you can nail that, you've got a good business model ahead of you.
That really resonates. I think our entire business is built around really understanding our client success metrics and then being able to drive volumes of leads to our clients. They send us data in return. We understand how our leads are performing. Then we optimize our marketing and their sales process to allow us then to hit the success metrics and then scale very quickly. So that notion of understanding the client success, it really resonates. But on that topic, I think of skills. There's no question that creativity and innovation, this notion of a kind of growth mindset with strong technical knowledge, analytical skills, data-driven skills, they're all absolutely critical. But it's not just about hiring for skills. It's also about hiring for aptitude and potential. And our view is that most skills, or most skills, can be taught. So we very much look for potential in our MVFers, coachability, and as I mentioned, values is very important to us. So that values fit is really important. So we look to find future MVFers who not only buy into our pitch of success, but also crucially buy into how we want to deliver that pitch of success. So you spoke to I think you called it CHRO. We call it the people team, so our chief people officer, and Ange and her team have done a fantastic job of building out MVF University. So we have a management development academy, which is our global program, experiential learning based, which has been recognised by the ILM. And that's just one example of the kind of investments that I think businesses need to make to really hang on to exceptional talent with potential and imbue them with the skills that they need to be successful as they progress in their careers. Certainly, we want to be retaining top talent. We don't want to be having to go to market. We want to create really exciting career paths for our top talent, and we do everything that we possibly can to keep people in the business. And it's interesting that you spoke also to diversity and inclusion. So we absolutely recognise that diverse teams are high-performing teams, and we are committed to creating that inclusive environment where fundamentally we're creating a culture of acceptance, which is all about fitting together rather than fitting in, where people can bring their best and their authentic self to work every day. And that's something that we spend considerable time and energy on. In this year, we've launched 3 of our networks. We've launched our LGBTQ+ network. We've launched our LEAP network, which stands for the Lived Experiences of Ethnic Peoples network, and we've also have our women's network. And it's through those networks that we're able to really listen to what's important and able to feed back what we're learning into some of our policies and practices. So that notion of skills is important, but we think it's really about aptitude and potential, but also diversity within our workforce.
I think on that hiring point, Andrew, I think to Josh's point as well on reskilling, I think often, you know, Andrew talked about MBF University, and we have academies across all of our different disciplines because we hire grads and we train them internally. And I think that experience is often wrongly coupled to tenure. However, I think with experience, you can gain that in lots of different ways. And the quickest way to gain experience is actually just exposure, right? So you might not have a long time in role. Your tenure might not be like years and years. However, the experience you gain from navigating through situations like coronavirus gives you a lot of exposure, and you build it up really, really quickly. So I think that when we're hiring people, that is it's not necessarily tenure that we're looking at or experience in that regard. I think if you're in a fast-growing business, especially, you can give that person a lot of exposure that builds up that experience in a different way.
Yeah, I'm completely with you on that front. And if you look at the pandemic, there are two groups that have been disproportionately impacted in a negative way. Working parents, specifically working mothers, and people without a university degree. They are without doubt the folks that have been most impacted by the furlough programs, or sadly people being made redundant. And I think that sort of talks to this. I love the idea, Andrew, that you were saying about this idea of hiring on potential, and Sam, that experience can be, you can gain experience in many, many different ways. You don't just have to gain experience in the industry in which you operate. And a couple of years ago, within our UK advertising business specifically, we realized that we weren't as representative of the society in which we live, and importantly, our 29 million members in the UK. And so we needed to change our business and to evolve. And when we looked at our hiring practices, we realized we were hiring, don't get me wrong, a lot of brilliant people, many of whom are still with us today, but a lot of them were coming from the same sector, the same industry. And so we shifted to more of a competency-based interviewing process. I've always thought that there are 5 characteristics that I think make great leaders, and they're the same characteristics that make great employees and you can screen for in the interview process. Intellectual curiosity, and is someone like genuinely curious? Do they ask lots of questions? Emotional intelligence, do they understand how they come across, how others perceive them? Resilience, we spoke about the importance of that, never more important than this year. Passion, and you can be passionate about anything, an extracurricular activity, something you've done in the workplace, but can you demonstrate passion? And humor, and when I say humor, you don't have to be hilarious, but you have to not have an ego, not take yourself too seriously. And when you combine those 5 factors, I think that enables you to hire a wonderful variety of different people from different industries that are going to enrich your organization, that your customers are going to meet with people that look and feel like them. It's going to be a much more seamless experience for them, and ultimately your business is going to prosper as a result.
I agree, and I think it's also important as leaders to recognise that we need to look in maybe some of the non-traditional places to find great talent. And we've recently been running an apprenticeship program. I was really pleased that one of our first apprentices, AO, worked the way through that program, because there's a tremendous amount of talent out there, and some of that talent doesn't necessarily have the same opportunities to prove themselves through the kind of traditional kind of academic standards that we so often use as one of our key measures of ability and aptitude. And I think as leaders, it's really important that we look in some non-traditional places for that talent, and also assess that talent in different ways. Some of the skills around resilience and tenacity that we've spoken to will really come through in different ways from people who maybe haven't had the privilege of an education to the same kind of university degree that many of our graduates have had historically. So that's something again that we're also looking at very hard and working on.
Some research recently, actually, and specifically pretty tactical sort of research in the marketing sector, to understand which organizations were the best at demand generation, at lead generation. And interestingly, we found that the ones that were best at lead generation hired more brand marketers. They hired more people to focus on sort of deepening their understanding of their end audience. And they hired more people from different sectors versus just bringing in people that look and feel the same from their industry. And when you combine those factors, they ended up becoming far better and more efficient and more effective at lead generation than they would have been otherwise. And it's quite interesting that I think a lot of marketers think, well, if I'm going to do lead generation really well, I need people who have done this in the past, who have that lived experience, who have done something very similar in another business. And actually, the ones who ended up doing it best didn't follow that path at all. They went in a very different direction and ultimately were more successful.
I think it definitely comes back to what Andrew said earlier, like the tools that we're working on now won't exist or won't look the exact same in a couple of years' time. And as someone who works in digital marketing, it's when you go into a tool after a couple of months, you're like, I might as well never have been here before. I don't know how to use this anymore. You really are stumped, I guess. So yeah, it's that agility of making sure that we can all figure it out as we go. I think as well, Josh, when you were talking about how we hire at LinkedIn, it's interesting that the words that you use there and the things that you kind of are thinking about are very similar to the top 5 most in-demand soft skills on LinkedIn. So those ones are creativity, persuasion, collaboration, adaptability, and emotional intelligence. So it's interesting to see that come out for LinkedIn, on LinkedIn and for LinkedIn and across many other teams as well, I'm sure. So we are coming up to the time where I'm going to pass it to the audience and let them do a live Q&A with you guys. So again, if you want to get involved in the conversation, you can add your question to the stream or get involved with the hashtag #LiveUpMarketers. The final question I'm going to pass from myself to all of the panelists is, are you optimistic about the future and why? Sam, I'll go to you first.
I think although we are far from the end of the COVID era, even with a vaccine on the horizon, that coupled with the timing of Brexit, I think there is a lot of uncertainty still at a macro global economic level. However, from a business perspective, I do feel optimistic. I think we've experienced firsthand how our clients have adapted to such unprecedented events in such a positive way. And that just makes them more robust for the future. I think the COVID period has more generally brought us closer to our clients, and that's resulted in sort of creating value in terms of iterating processes. I think there's clients that have in fact come out of this leaner, stronger, and more agile, and our relationships with our clients mirror that. And I think from a remote working perspective, like a lot of businesses, like Andrew described, we were forced to move from an office base to a totally remote organization quite quickly, with over 500 people in various roles, including a contact center working from home. So through facilitating that rollout, everyone has shown a lot of resilience and innovation. And it's not without its challenges, but we look forward to being able to blend back into this office/home working environment in the future. But I think it definitely shows that if you invest in culture and values, then when push comes to shove, that's what holds it all together and keeps us moving forward. And I think our board from the top down have really made sure everyone understands and lives that values-driven culture, which has been so important in times like this, creating a really resilient organization coming out of COVID even stronger.
Josh, I'll hand it to you next.
So I'm an optimist by nature. My glass is generally half full. It's been difficult to keep that mindset over the last 6 months, but I have just managed to do it. In general, we've got a lot of data at LinkedIn, 700 million people. We've got a good idea around hiring trends around the world. But we have seen the hiring rate start to improve in a lot of. I think for a lot of people who are dialed into the session today, you probably operate within the sort of marketing or within the digital marketing function, and we are all in a sweet spot at the moment. There are many, many challenges with various other aspects of marketing, specifically, I mentioned earlier, print, outdoor, airports. If you are working within the digital marketing sphere at the moment, you are in demand. This is what is going to drive growth for most brands around the world, whether you operate in the B2B world or the B2C world. Again, as Sam said, lots of commentary in the press over the last few weeks around the vaccine. I think a combination of the vaccine, good test and trace facilities around the world, the being in the sweet spot of an industry which is growing and growing rapidly, I am optimistic for 2021 and beyond. I'm very, very cognizant, though, that there are many, many people out there who are having an incredibly, incredibly challenging time, notably those who are furloughed or have lost their roles, who operate in industries that have been greatly impacted by the pandemic. And going back to what I said before, I think it is for that reason that we need to invest so heavily in upskilling specifically digital skills at the moment are absolutely critical.
Yeah, I echo that. I know it's been a very, very tough year with a tremendous amount of challenge, not just for kind of MBFers who I'm representing today, but for society at large. And there's tremendous amount of uncertainty going into next year. I mean, like everyone, just really personally very excited about the fact that it appears that will be vaccines that will be effective, and there are a couple of different variants, and that's obviously really encouraging. Obviously, we need to implement an effective vaccination program to see the effects of that. And frankly, it feels as if it's going to be the other side of Easter before we really get through that. Even that's probably quite optimistic. And then, of course, we managed to get through close to whatever it is, 45 minutes of conversation without mentioning Brexit. We still don't know where we're going to end up on a Brexit deal, so that's another a kind of macro factor that's creating a lot of uncertainty. But I guess to Sam's point, I'm still really bullish about MVS prospects. I mean, fundamentally, the problem that we solve for our clients, which is growth, remains at the top of the CEO agenda now, probably more so than ever. And frankly, online customer acquisition, it's really, really hard to do. And it's hard for a number of reasons. You've got regulation. Obviously, the California Consumer Privacy Act came out this year, and obviously with the GDPR, expected change in the e-privacy regulation, and the soon-to-be announced ICO Direct Marketers Code. There's a lot of change from a regulatory perspective, huge complexity around channels. So we run 40 channels, pretty much any digital marketing channel there is where we can get return and volume, we run. And platforms like LinkedIn are obviously innovating and developing new ad formats, new targeting options, new bidding types. That creates a lot of complexity around the effectiveness of digital marketing. We've spoken about the challenge of talent. Hiring good people, great people is really, really hard to do. It's really even harder to hold on to them, and it's very competitive. If you're kind of a subscale advertiser, it's very hard to create a really kind of compelling employee proposition. And of course, technology. The technology stack now. There are over 7,000 different vendors in the MarTech space, and making sense of that and building an effective tech stack is really complex. And I guess we solve that problem by creating that turnkey solution. And I think clients that work with us can have that steady stream, that steady stream of high volumes of sales regular leads, and I think the proposition that we have will be really compelling coming into next year. And we've spoken about it a lot already. The team that we've got, and they've shown themselves to have operated amazingly under really difficult circumstances. And that relentless focus on kind of agility, creativity, and innovation, all with a very kind of positive mindset and approach, is what gives me the most confidence going into next year.
Great. Andrew, I'm going to stick with you for the first audience question, if that's okay. And it's really on that point about culture in your team. And is there anything you can share that you guys have done as a team to get you through this in a more informal way? So whether it's a Zoom birthday or anything else.
Wow. There's been an enormous amount that the team have done, and one of the things that we do is we believe very much in managing by outcomes. So we give the team a broad parameters in which to operate, but fundamentally we think it's much more engaging for the team, and you get much better results when you actually empower them to determine how they achieve the outcome that you want them to achieve. And that same thing goes for how we've thought about kind of team engagement. And very early on in the pandemic, We allowed the teams to find their own feet to work out what worked for them, and we created a means of surfacing some of the really impactful, effective ways in which the team have started to build, rapport and make work a little bit more fun. There's a whole slew of things that we've done, from kind of delivering pizzas to the team for them to eat together, so that in essence kind of dining together at that moment in time, to doing stand-ups in fancy dress, to running yoga online as a group, and a whole host of other things that we've tried across the team. So we've let the team be really super creative in terms of some of the tactics and techniques that they've used to build that engagement and rapport, and to try and hang on to that culture that is so important.
That sounds amazing. One of the nicest things we've done recently that was team led as well was for Diwali, so a cook along that we did last week, which was really exciting, and it was just such an easy concept and so easy to do from your kitchen, which I did destroy as I did it, but it was very enjoyable. The next question I'm going to pass to Josh, and it's around it's something we've talked about on this call. It's the increase in everything being digital and virtual this year, and it has led to a lot more competition on channels for advertising such as LinkedIn. What would be your number one tip for brands to get the most return for their investment?
So one of my sort of mantras of any business or any function is this idea of fewer things done better. And actually, that's one of the trends that we've seen within the marketing sector, specifically within the agency community over the last 12 months, is that when they've had staff out on furlough, or they've had less time because they've been working remotely and they're having to manage home life with work life, they have consolidated the number of channels that they're working with. And in general, they've consolidated it into the channels where people have really strong first-party data. So to the degree that you can, fewer things done better. I think it's very difficult to do 50 or 60 things well at once. So that is an overarching sort of focus. Prioritization, be really clear with your teams or with your priorities, like what are the 2 or 3 things that you're going to focus on for the next 6 months, and if something else comes along, is it a distraction, or does it add to one of those, or contribute to one of those three priorities. So every organization is going to operate very differently, so it's difficult to give guidance on what you specifically should do, but prioritization, what are the top 3 things you want to focus on over the next 6 months? Embrace this notion of fewer things done better, especially when it comes to channels. Think about who has really strong first-party data, critically important. Leverage great partners. We've got them on the call today. Leverage great partners who have deep expertise in this space. If you don't have the capabilities in-house, these are great opportunities for you to outsource it, to find an organization that feels like an extension of your own team, who has years of experience of doing this brilliantly well, for people who are in your industry and other industries that you can learn from. So any combination of those, I think, would be probably helpful in the current climate.
Thank you, Josh. And I think the next question I'm going to give to the entire panel, and I'll start with you, Sam, if that's okay. So one piece of technology that your team is going to rely on heavily in 2021, or that you already are.
We have a tech stack, so I think relying on one piece of technology. So we have an inbuilt CRM system. So we built it a few years ago. We tried using external ones, but because we are at our heart a technology company, we built that ourselves. And I think adapting that CRM system and making it really robust is going to be really, really important to make sure our sales organization is future-proof. And what I mean by making it robust and future-proof is sort of having that speak to all of our other platforms, I think is really important. So we are a very data-driven company. We use a data visualization tool called Looker that many of you might have heard of. So I think making sure everything we do is data-driven, and all of our platforms speak to each other, but really investing in our our biggest tool that we use as a sales organization, which is our CRM system, is going to be really important.
And Josh, I'll give it to you next.
Sure. So I might cheat and have two. The first is Microsoft Teams. We have really embraced that over the last 6 to 12 months. It has been brilliant for informal communications, team meetings, virtual collaboration, and I imagine we will sort of double down on that in a pretty material way over the next 12 months. The second is really using our own products and tools, so especially when it comes to things like our events functionality and also LinkedIn Live that we are using at the moment. We, as I mentioned earlier, had to pivot all of our in-person events to virtual. We used to spend about 50% of our marketing budget on in-person events. That has also shifted pretty materially. We're embracing digital, and that it starts with our own products and services, so events and LinkedIn Live.
There was also a really exciting update from Microsoft Teams yesterday around it being open to everyone, and not just for professional use, but also for personal. So I'll put that into the event straight after this call, but if you want to just check it out on the Microsoft blog, you will find all the information there as well. So it's a nice one to mention, Josh, for sure. And Andrew, finally.
Yeah, so I guess like Sam said, we're a really data-driven business, but fundamentally our entire business runs off a best-of-breed and proprietary technology stack. We couldn't do what we do without the over 11 years worth of expertise that we've been able to codify into our platform, and which allows us to do what we do at such scale. And we obviously supplement that with best-of-breed third-party technology whenever it makes sense to do so. So certainly, our core proprietary operating systems are going to be something we're going to rely on immensely, because frankly, without it, we couldn't do what we do. But I tell you one thing I am going to look forward to doing less of, and that's these conference calls. I think it works and it's been amazing. I'm looking forward to getting back into the office probably around about April time, being able to spend lots of time with the team face to face, and maybe frankly using a little bit less technology in terms of how we collaborate and work.
I'm very
Andrew,
sorry.
I'm with you on that front. I'm an introvert by nature, and I've never been so desperate to spend time with other people that are not my family. So I'm very, very eager to get into the office next year to start spending time with our team and our customers again in person.
I'm very pleased we've gotten through nearly this entire call without anyone being on mute and trying to speak. It's been great. We've had loads and loads of questions, and I want to thank everyone for getting those in. We won't be able to make them all to the panel today, but the one I'm going to finish on, I think, is a really nice one. And we are just coming up on time, so I'll ask everyone to keep it slightly on the briefer side. But it's advice for managers at this time. So managers are obviously going through a lot personally, as well as trying to keep their team motivated and energized and safe, to be honest. And if there was one piece of advice you had for managers at this time in all warps of the world, what would that be? I'll pass it to you first, Josh.
Look after your own physical and mental health. It sounds weird because as a manager, you're responsible for others. But if you don't look after your own physical and mental health, it is incredibly challenging to care for others. So make yourself your number one priority, and then find the space to demonstrate empathy and compassion for those around you.
Very good advice. Sam, I'll pass it to you.
I think really spending time with individual people in your team, and I don't mean your normal one-on-ones where you are talking through their objectives and outcomes and KPIs. I mean really making time to catch up with individuals, how they're getting on. Some people will be having a tougher time, or more of a tougher time than others. Other people might want to be stretched, or they might be actually finding it a lot easier, and they might want more of a challenge. So I think trying to take the time outside your day-to-day to really spend time with your team and understand, we call them actually growth conversations, which we do once a quarter or once every 6 months, and we really talk about the bigger picture. So I would say, yeah, spend time with your team and talk to them about the bigger picture, and then personally try to find time to do that.
So two great answers, and Josh, I completely agree. I think looking after number one, I think particularly off the back of 9 months of working at home, the physical and the mental side of things is really tough. So we've introduced a new initiative where we have an extra hour off during the daylight hours in winter, where we encourage all of the team to get out and go and exercise and to go and recharge their batteries. So that's something that I completely agree with. But on top of that, I'd say it's just about, listen hard, like really listen hard what your team are telling you, and try and understand and empathize with them to where they're coming from, and be encouraging. These are really difficult times, and I think doing the best that you can do to fill your team with positive energy and with encouragement, and you won't go too far wrong.
That's great advice, guys. Thank you so much. I think a lot of people on the call will really appreciate that, whether they are a people manager or a marketing practitioner or sales practitioner as well. I want to say a huge thank you to my panel. It was a really engaging conversation, and by the amount of questions we got in, our audience seemed really engaged as well. To our audience who joined today, wherever you are, thank you so much. It has been an absolutely crazy year, but it's our pleasure to have you on this call with our great panel. The recording of the episode will be available immediately after this call on the LinkedIn Marketing Solutions page, and also inside the event. And we can't wait to welcome you to our next broadcast in 2021. Thank you so much. Stay safe and have a great day.